Early in 2021, right as the Biden administration was taking office, I began to notice something happening between Florida and the rest of the country. And after a couple of months of study, I came out and made a statement that shocked a lot of my audience. Basically, what I was saying is Florida had de facto seceded from the United States, if not de jure in law. Operationally, we were going one direction while the rest of the country was going another. There were other states that didn't like the other direction that they were going, but they weren't doing anything actively to fight against it, unlike Florida. Well, I have some new information today to show how different things are now in Florida 3 years on. To prove this, we are more divorced from the other 49 states than the colonies were from England during the Revolutionary War. How many of you have seen the 3%ers? How many of you know what the 3%ers stand for? It's the idea that only 3% of those who lived in the colonies during the Revolution actually engaged in any armed rebellion, any active rebellion against the king. Well, there are far more people in Florida that, on a daily basis, walk directly the other direction. When you talk about Washington, D.C. or national elections, they just don't want to have anything to do with it. It was only a couple of days ago that the governor of Florida, amongst many other things, ended this ridiculous idea of squatters' rights in Florida. Now, some might say, well, Florida, Maquis, there are other states that have done things, and not really. When you add the fact that the sheriffs, on top of the governor, have said basically the scam is over. The squatters have no quarter. They have nowhere to go. They have no place to turn. If they're going to try to take people's property from them. Now, before I forget real quick, while I'm saying that, I would like to give a big shout out to the Patriot Nurse who earlier today was talking about the return to serfdom and how really the idea of private property and having private property is the foundation of the American dream and the foundation of liberty. Now, that is a catch-22 because when you are in a situation where you ad infinitum have to pay taxes, whether it be at a state, whether it be local, whether it be federal, then there's a level of serfdom you're never going to get away from. But let me stay on track here. So the governor of Florida, ending the squatter scam in law. The sheriffs saying, we're right with you, governor, no problem. Squatters can legally, however, steal your land in 20 other states. While here in Florida, we have sheriffs that have gone out in front of cameras, called press conferences, and said, we prefer homeowners shoot them. You think I'm kidding? Go look it up. Go look it up on YouTube. We prefer, the sheriffs of Florida, the vast majority of them, I don't want to speak for all of them, but the vast majority of them, prefer that homeowners take up arms to defend their own property. And I'll give you a link to this video. 1.15 million subscribers, world according to Brink. 20 states squatters can legally claim your property, one of them being Texas. Included here is Arizona, South Carolina, Ohio, all places that people would say Florida Maquis. Florida is no different than anywhere else in this country. There are other places that are just as conservative, not in reality. Not in reality. Huge problem still going on in Texas. Here's a picture. This was from Fox, San Antonio. Texas homeowners confront squatters as he climbs through the window. Squatters breaking into my house again through the window. Police will do nothing about it. In Texas. So when I say things in Florida are very different than what they are in Tennessee, than what they are in... They are. We are in a completely independent, different place. And you can see it every day in the news. The things that people talk about going on and the issues, they just don't happen here. They just don't. And before I forget also, would like to, of course, invite everyone. Join us over at the Florida Monkey Patreon channel, Battlefield of the Mind kind of stuff. This is a perfect example where folks think in their mind, oh, Texas, Florida, Arizona, Ohio, Tennessee, all the same place, all conservative, all red states. No. Not even close. Not even close. Some might say, Florida Maquis, you're comparing apples and oranges. No, I'm comparing apples to apples. But if you want to make that allegation, I want you guys to think about something critically and clearly for one moment about apples and oranges. The only difference between an apple and an orange is visually, of course, they look different. And of course, they taste different. But to your body, and chemically speaking, they are identical. They are both just sugar. You eat an orange, you eat an apple, virtually the exact same response in your body is going to occur. So the differences are only superficial, unlike Florida, where the differences are demonstrable. But once again, would love to have you at the Florida Monkey Patreon channel. $1 per month, even less if you sign up for an entire year. Fully refundable, first 90 days, no questions asked. Once again, really great video from the Patriot Nurse earlier today talking about this idea of rent versus owning. She had made the allegation if you got into your house before everything dropped with COVID, which thank God I did, that you're probably going to be okay. But if you weren't, the climb is getting steeper and steeper and steeper and steeper to the point where it's almost impossible. And they are just handing things over to people. Now, let's shift gears for just 1 second here. People struggling, people having a hard time making ends meet. Fast food workers left in shock over blindsided layoffs in California. Delivery drivers face layoffs. This is happening in the fast food industry on the West Coast. California fast food workers, minimum wage jumping to $20, and the people running the franchises, running the business, saying, we're not going to do it. We will just lay people off, down to the point where if we have to shut our doors 3 days a week or 4 days a week and only operate on the weekends and only for limited hours, and we have to cut back our menu, and we have to charge exorbitant prices, then that's what we're going to do. I mean, one way or the other, they're going to have to pay the $20 an hour. But who's going to really pay the price for that? Now, you might say, well, nobody really needs Pizza Hut. I mean, that's kind of a luxury thing. I agree. I'm looking for another article that I had here. They were talking about these veggie platters in the grocery store that are $25 and $30 because they're having to pay people these exorbitant wages to just cut the little pieces of vegetables up. So my question is this. I guess I lost it, but I'll have to look for that. My question is this. What is the answer going to be? You see, yesterday we talked about, and we have been talking about, this meteoric rise of OnlyFans. Basically normal, everyday, average ladies across North America, primarily North America, that in the privacy of their own homes with a camera and whatever, have been supplementing their income with some racy photos because they've been faced with eviction, faced with repossession. And it's across the board. It's nurses, it's doctors, it's teachers, it's politicians, it's people from all walks of life that have been, given the choice. Well, I could go drive for Uber or Lyft, or I could get a job doing that or the other part-time job. And this is where they fall back on. It's a very strange thing because it's invisible. People don't really see it because it's all hidden on the internet. But here is my question about the solution to the problem. People are asking, are we going to have to make more to be able to afford the higher prices? Or are prices of the food going to have to come down? Or some combination of the two? Well, we know food never goes down. It never has. Try to find something that has ever, I would love to see it. I'd love to be proven wrong in this particular case. Show me something where there was any moment in time where the price went up and then actually went down and then went back up again. It's what it costs versus what you're making. And the reason I bring all this up is because California is like, well, let's just have people make more. And a lot of people ended up with zero because of that. It's truly because government didn't go far enough. And some say, well, Fort Maki, that sounds an awful lot like socialism. Well, look in each state what the cost of a loaf of bread is. It's just representative. Why isn't it the same for everybody? A loaf of bread is a loaf of bread is a loaf of bread. Why isn't it the same for everybody? And the big question is, if you're not a socialist, if you don't think you're a socialist, or you don't think socialism is the answer, i.e. the government, why then would voting matter in this respect? When it comes to the cost of groceries at the grocery store, if government shouldn't be involved in the free market, it shouldn't be something that Donald Trump could fix, even if he wanted to, or Joe Biden could continue to make worse, even if he wanted to. You see, that's the part that kind of gets some people. Biden has said multiple times, I'm a capitalist, I'm a capitalist. And when you look at, like, for example, here's Bitcoin. Let's pull up the 5-year. Bitcoin is at record highs. The Dow Jones is also at record highs. Let's pull up 5-year. It's kind of flattened out, but when Trump left office, it was 28,992, and now the Dow is 39,000. So I don't know, and I'm being completely honest and genuine here. I'm not trying to be argumentative. What would be the solution? And if it came from government, whether it's a fix or whether they make it worse, isn't that socialism either way? For example, if government stops doing this and things gets better, that means government is in charge of the economy. If the government starts doing something and things get worse, once again, government in charge of the economy. Whatever iteration of that you want to use, if it's something the government is or isn't doing, or who is or who isn't in charge, it is then by de facto socialism. And if you want to see evidence of that, look at this. The teacher we talked about yesterday, 30 years in the Ohio teaching system. One of their best teachers. They couldn't pay a living wage to the point where she had to do this OnlyFans thing. And this is a standard price list. $5, charging $5 a month for access to her website. She went and virtually doubled her teacher salary. And she wasn't some former model. She wasn't some unbelievably, oh my goodness, look at her, she's absolutely let me find the picture. Average, everyday, see her in the grocery store, wouldn't think a thing of it. At $5 a month, making $77,000 a year. I remember reading the article. She was making around 40 as a teacher. And now she's making 77 working from home. So I don't know how anybody could complain about capitalism in this particular case. And the numbers are staggering. And I know a lot of people are going to argue with this, the only solution to pornography in this country is a good heavy dose of socialism. Meaning everybody who's doing this right now, making money at it, the government's going to have to step in and subsidize them and say, okay, if you stop, we'll give you this check. Meaning if you stop producing this stuff, if you delete all this and you don't do this, we'll give you a check to mitigate the cost involved in stopping doing that. On average, 372 people who search for the word adult every second in this country. These are just the U.S. statistics, not the global ones. 1 in 4 searches across all search engines are related to porn. Every second, more than 28,000 people are involved. Every second, 37 videos are uploaded. Every second. 37 videos per second. 2.5 billion emails a day. 2.5 billion emails with porn a day. One in three people on the internet get exposed to it, not even trying to. Literally going out of their way to not see it. They see it anyway. 200,000 addicts. 200,000 addicts. 35% of the downloads. People addicted, 11 hours a week. 1 in 5 men, 1 in 7 women. This statistic up here that says every second 28,000 people are involved, that is what they call concurrent viewership. If this is the equivalent of going to a video on YouTube, and if you ever see a live, you'll see a little number down at the bottom of the screen that'll say viewing now or watching now. And that's what they call concurrent viewership. Concurrent viewership on YouTube measures by the minute. 28,000 per second is it would be a concurrent viewership of 1.68 million. 1.68 million nonstop every second of every day. These are just the U.S. statistics. It's frightening. It truly is. Let me see if I can find that picture. I think I must have lost it, but you wonder what makes people turn to those desperate measures. This is it. It's the same thing with squatting. There's folks that just, they want to walk off and waltz off in a huff when I talk about this. If anybody else would talk about it, maybe I'd stop. But nobody wants to talk about this issue in intellectual terms, in the terms of capitalism versus socialism, in terms of the fabric of our society. I mean, what would you do to feed your kids? What would you do to stay off the street, to sleep in a bed, to make sure I'm sleeping in a bed? I have a roof over my head. I have maybe a few things in the refrigerator, maybe a vehicle, gas, and maybe a job I hate, but a job anyway. God bless, the ability to have one. As opposed to sitting on the street with a sign. This is the crux of the argument of what's going to go on this November and who's going to be voted for. And the second level on that is like, well, crap. If it's that big of a deal, then we truly are no longer a free market society. If whoever we put in charge in the West Wing for 4 years is going to have that much of an effect. It's kind of a hard thing to face. It really is. It's kind of like the thing with Florida. In reality, the people that have made the biggest difference in the lives of, or at least the people in our state, have been our governor and our sheriffs. Our governor and our sheriffs have made a far bigger difference in our lives as Floridians than anybody in Washington, D.C. I couldn't care less who wins in November. I couldn't care less who the vice president is. Couldn't care less what Donald Trump's legal problems are or Joe Biden's mental, physical issues are. I couldn't care less because they have nothing to do with my life. These men do. These men do. If you don't believe me, come to Florida. Sleep with your doors open. I do. You might agree with it, might not agree with it. Been here for years and never thought anything of it. The biggest problem I have is kids playing in my yard. They ain't supposed to be, but that's the biggest problem you have. You're living a blessed life, but I'll leave that there. Battlefield of the mind. Getting control of your mind. Doesn't matter how many big, huge jugs of dried beans you have in the basement. Doesn't really matter how many freedom seeds you have or ballistic devices for the operation and use of those freedom seeds. Those of you know what I'm talking about. Your ability to provide medical care or health care or any of that, all will be meaningless if you do not have the ability to understand the battlefield of the 21st century, which is the mind. We get into this over the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. How to get a hold of your mind and look at things clearly, not as they might make you feel. Because sometimes seeing things clearly might not agree with your, feel-good mentality that you have about, watching the news and who you support and who you don't. Sometimes the reality is a tough pill to swallow. But you got to get your mind right and be able to do it. So I will leave it there. God bless. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Pray for the Patriot Nurse to lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.